This is episode number 29 with Alberto Isaac. Coming up.
I finished it. I had no idea what I read. And he said, "You're good." And I went, "Really?" I'd never gotten that kind of validation before. And I booked the part. And I'm like, God, I should have done this sooner. So simple. Anyway, and of course I didn't book another job for over a year. When I first started taking classes at school, I realized that nobody saw me except as an Asian person, and it's like getting sakini in the tea house of the August moon. And I'm like, well, I kind of I was thinking more, in Midsummer Stream, You use the word rejection, which I think is the major factor that gets in the way of artists, of actors, to get that sense of, too bad, you don't want me, but right. I know I'm good. That's very difficult.
If you're looking for what it takes to be an actor long-term over the course of your life, then you've come to the right place, and you're going to really enjoy this episode. Today's guest grew up in the Philippines, fell in love with movies as a kid, found validation through acting, pursued his master's degree, got fired from a big break, and still has been working for over 5 decades. Hey there, this is Nathan Agan, and welcome to the Working Actor's Journey, connecting you with lifelong professionals. Today's guest is Alberto Isaac, an actor who has been working for 50-plus years across theater, TV, and film. In addition to regional theater gigs across the country, he has enjoyed a long association with East West Players, joining them shortly after that company started, and also found success as a director and playwright there. This podcast is designed to show you how the work is done, what the realities of the working actor life are like, and to share all the different ways actors have come to this career. There is no one path and no single answer. We want to learn from all of those further down the road, to shorten the learning curve and to discover what helps and what doesn't when it comes to having a lifelong career as an actor. By the way, did you know you can support this podcast as a patron? Starting at just $2 per month, get exclusive access to behind-the-scenes and additional content, and be a part of taking this show to the next level. And for those who join at the co-star level or higher, just $5 or more per month, you also receive a 10% discount on our workshops and programs. Head to workingactorsjourney.com/premium to join today, and thank you for your support. Our guest today, Alberto, is a veteran award-winning actor-director based in Los Angeles. After receiving a master's degree in drama from California State University, LA, where he won acting and directing awards, he became associated with the renowned Asian American theater company East West Players, appearing in and directing many of their productions, as well as functioning for several years as literary manager. As an actor, he has appeared at La Jolla Playhouse, the Mark Taper Forum, Kirk Douglas Theater, the Cast Theater, Berkeley Rep, a contemporary theater, and Studio Theater in Washington, D.C. He has over 40 credits on film and TV, including recurring roles on several shows. I got to meet Alberto through our rehearsal room workshops. He was a part of the Uncle Vanya scene that Libby Apple directed, and a thank you to Juana Martinez for recommending him. And then earlier this year, I was able to involve him as Gloucester in our King Lear workshop. In fact, you'll hear Alberto and I talk about this play and that role, so I guess he got his first crack at it. Now, even when you read someone's bio or their credits, there is still so much you don't know about how they got there and what happened, and it was a lot of fun hearing from Alberto how it all came together. I'm so grateful for how open and honest he is. He has such a great ease about him, though you can still tell he's very passionate about his work. It was a great talk, and I'm sure you'll enjoy getting to know him as much as I did. So here we go with episode number 29. Please enjoy my chat with Alberto Isaac. Is it one of those days where it feels like already by noon you've already done a full day?
Yeah, it has. Yeah. Okay.
What part of town do you live in?
I live in Angelino Heights, which is in the Echo Park area.
Oh, okay.
Angelino Heights is one of LA's first suburbs, so it's got all those Victorian houses that they use in filming a lot.
Oh, okay. Oh, and I see. Is that a cat has joined you as well?
One of them, yeah. Okay. Go away.
Like many cats, they just believe they own everything. They can go wherever they want. So did you grow up in LA? Is that where you were born? Or?
No, I was born in the Philippines.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, born and bred. I came to LA when I was 18.
Okay. And now what I did find, or it looked like Alberto is actually your middle name. Is that correct?
Well, my parents gave me this long hyphenated first name.
Okay.
Feliciano Alberto. It's like, yeah, try putting that on a marquee. So I've dropped the first part of it. Gray is my middle name.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which goes with Philippine practice. Your mother's maiden name is your middle name.
Okay. And you said Pontesiano Alberto. What is the first part of that name mean? Is it a Filipino meaning or?
No, it's not very common Spanish name.
Oh, okay.
From some obscure Byzantine saint.
Do you know why they chose that name for you? Was it them?
Yeah, it was my father's father.
Oh, okay.
So I got stuck with it for some reason. My brother has a nice, normal, short name, Manuel, Manuel. And yeah. And I mean, you didn't have a hyphenated name.
Did you have that? Like, did you kind of keep that name for a while, or did people have nicknames for you, or like how did you grow up with that?
Yeah, I pretty much kind of dropped the first part when I came to the country because it was so hard for people to pronounce, and also it was so long. It's 10 letters, and yeah, I had nicknames, whatever, some shortened version of it, Bottom, that sort of thing. But only the older members of my family call me that. I mean, when my wife gave me my present nickname, which is Berto. I mean, now people call me Berto, which sounds weird, to me. So the name has always been weird to me. The naming, it's like, I've always hated the first part of my name because it was so long and such a mouthful. And, so I dropped it fairly soon after I came to LA. Alberto was much easier for people to handle. Yeah.
Well, and with Berto, you're only a half step away from, what was it, King George the Sixth or something. Wasn't he Bertie to all of his friends? So you're just like, you're kind of a half step removed. Right. So what were your parents doing in Philippines? What was the life you grew up around out there?
Well, they were both, born in the Philippines. My life, I guess, was sort of upper middle class, I suppose. My father came from apparently a well-to-do family in the northern Philippines, and his father, who I'm named after, apparently, frittered all the family fortune away in the capital by gambling, wine, women, and song, and that sort of thing. My father was the same. He was a sea captain, eventually became a harbor pilot.
Oh, wow.
My mother was, her father was, during the Spanish-American War, a lot of American soldiers stayed on, and my grandfather and my mother's side was one of them, Wayne Gray from Little Rock, Arkansas. So I have relatives, so I'm 1/4 white. I'm a quadroon. So don't identify there at all. I mean, when I first came to LA, I met some of my white cousins, and it was interesting to see, some similarities. It's like, oh, there's my nose, and they were all short, and that's why I'm short.
Oh, okay.
Short white people.
So, you're born in like the early 40s out in the Philippines, and so
Yeah,
this is
during the war. Yep.
so growing up very much kind of post-war and all that kind of stuff. What do you remember as a kid in terms of like things you were involved in, or like just I mean, was there a neighborhood of other kids around? I mean, what was your life like at that age?
Well, I had a whole bunch of where we first lived, not many neighborhood kids, but when we moved to another city, I had a whole bunch of cousins. One of my mother's brothers had like 9 children, or
Wow.
something like that. And that wasn't the last. They didn't stop. I mean, they wanted, I think,
Yeah.
with 13
Yeah.
kids.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
something.
We're doing well at 9. Let's keep going. Let's see how well we can do.
And so, I had playmates.
Yeah, of course.
And I went to school. Don't remember playing with classmates for some reason. I'm an advanced age, so my childhood memories are a little. I do remember one of the first books I remember studying. It was a life yearbook. It was like the year in life,
Oh yeah, sure.
and it
Yeah.
was 1949 for some
wow.
reason. So I know a lot of things about the year 1949 for some reason.
Well, and you were about what, 7 years old then, or something?
6 or
Six,
7,
six or
yeah.
7. Okay, well, good.
Yeah.
I mean, now you can reach back into your past and pull out some details about 1949. And did you gravitate towards sports or academics, or where were your interests, in school?
I was always pretty much movie mad, I guess, as a child. I can remember the first movie I ever saw. I didn't know the title of it then. I mean, years later I found out what it was, but I do remember it vividly and, being very bowled over by Katherine Grayson singing, some song, and Gene Kelly tap dancing with Frank Sinatra. But so it was Anchors Away, by the way.
Okay.
So yeah, and I used to go to, movies very often, twice a week or more sometimes. Yeah.
And was there a very heavy kind of Western influence on your day-to-day life, or was the, Filipino culture extremely important to your parents in terms of like the household?
Gosh, Philippine culture wasn't, it was just kind of taken for granted.
Yeah.
My mother being half white, they encouraged us to speak English. As a matter of fact, English was my first language.
Okay.
Whatever Philippine languages I picked up was, on the street, classmates, friends, whatever. But mainly, I spoke English, always with an accent, but English. I think in English. I dreamt in English. So yeah, they're a big, strong Western influence, and of course, movies,
Sure. Okay.
music, and stuff were pretty much Western. The Spanish influence. The Philippines used to be a Spanish colony, but that had pretty much faded, I guess, by the time I was growing up.
Okay.
And the cat is doing something weird.
Yeah, I heard it. It sounded like it wanted to start typing there or something.
Yes. So there you go.
And okay, so you're getting all these, you have all this Western influence. And did you see that, or do you think your parents, was the encouragement to speak English just in terms of that was just the culture, or did they see it as a way of advancement in terms of opportunities for you, or was it just what everybody did?
I think both. By that time, when my mother and father met, the Philippines was a territory, United States territory. So business and education was pretty much conducted in English. And to this day, English is one of the national languages in the Philippines.
Okay.
So, and has evolved to its own peculiar Taglish, which is kind of like Spanglish.
Okay.
Yeah. I was watching something on YouTube, and they were trying to get regular middle-class Filipinos to try to speak only in English or only in Tagalog. And it was very difficult for them. The two languages kept getting intertwined.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, in school, did you feel like you had a drive or a focus in terms of an academic career? Or was there an influence from your parents? Like, did you know at an early age, like what you thought you were going to do?
No, at an early age, I mean, in my secret heart of hearts,
Yes.
I suppose, show business.
You wanted to be up there with Gene Kelly and Catherine Grayson, yeah.
Tapping away. But that's not something I would have dared to even verbalize to my family. I don't know
really?
why. I mean,
Really?
it's like, and
do you feel like they wouldn't have approved of it, or just it would have seemed like you're saying you want to be an astronaut, you want to live on the Mars or something like that?
Yeah, it just seemed like such a stretch. I mean, it would be like a really elaborate dream that could never come to any kind of yeah.
So did you do any acting in school, like junior high or high school or anything like that?
In high school, I think I did a couple of plays. I mean, drama was not a big subject or in the Philippines. It's in my school anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a couple, and I didn't really, I think, do a play, a full-length play until I came to the States and college.
Okay, so was that the kind of impetus to coming to the U.S. was to go to college? Was that always the plan?
To go to college, yeah, it is. College education was a very major value for my family and the country.
Sure, of course,
yeah. And my brother had already come here about 5 years before I did, and was studying, was in college. So it was almost understood that, and then it would be my turn to come to the, and so I did. Yeah.
And is it just the two of you, the two brothers?
We had two elder sisters. So
oh, okay.
Sister, brother, me.
Okay.
The baby.
Oh, so you're the baby. Okay. And what did they end up doing with their careers? Are they? Oh, I think I hear the cat tap dancing.
How are you doing? So my brother was a jock. He was, when he had a postgraduate course, a postgraduate degree in physical education. And when I came here, nothing was really, nobody. One thing, my parents never said, this is what you have to do when it was always, what do you want to do? And I didn't know, or I didn't dare say, well, I want to be an actor,
Right. And so you were saying your brother was very into sports and all that, and
right.
And then your sister, what did your sisters kind of focus on, or?
They were typical women of that time.
Did they pursue
went to college?
Okay.
But the second sister got married fairly young. I mean, while she was still in college, and the eldest, who was my father's favorite, I guess there's a lot of people who were in my father's eyes not good enough for him.
Okay.
So she eventually came to college as well, years after my brother and I were here, and then she met someone and got married while she was in college.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of careers did they end up pursuing? I mean, I know this is a huge generalization, but I know a lot of women from the Philippines end up in the medical field.
Neither of that. They were pretty much, homemakers.
Okay.
Yeah. If they had work, it was part-time.
Got it. Okay. And did your brother, pursue the sports in college, or did he do other stuff?
Yeah, he was.
So he was a pretty good athlete then.
Yeah, he was on the swim team and the water polo team, and and this was during the Vietnam War, and he became a SEAL, as a matter of fact, a Navy SEAL, and served in Vietnam, was awarded a Bronze Star for bravery and whatever. So that's my older brother. He's, you take a look at him and you go, mild-mannered, guy. Can't believe him in action, underwater. Anyway, and the thing that made him join the SEALs was also a movie. He saw a 50s film called Frogman or something.
Okay, yeah.
In his heart, he went, I want to do that.
Oh, cool.
swim there and set off explosives and stuff. Anyway, and he did eventually
Was
attain his dream.
Was that a nerve-wracking time for your family when he was over there in Vietnam? Or I mean, like, I don't know how involved he was and how much he was communicating or anything like that.
Sure. My father had died by then. I'm not sure how aware my mother was. And we're, in a lot of ways, we're not a very communicative family, very Anglo-Saxon that way.
Okay,
not demonstrative, not communicative.
Not showy with the feelings and all that kind of stuff.
Right, yeah. So I have no idea of what my mother thought,
So did your
Never
dad...
shared it with her.
Did your dad pass away fairly young then?
Fairly young. I was 22 or thereabouts.
Oh, wow.
And he was only in his 60s, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. What did he pass away from?
Some kind of, isn't the diagnosis always congested heart failure? But he was in the hospital, and I believe he caught pneumonia. And,
So, I mean, I imagine you were living in LA at the time. Like, had he been sick for a while, or?
No, he was fairly active, and it was just apparently some routine something, a complaint that he went in for, and so he died, and neither my brother and I flew home for the funeral or anything. We just kind of stayed here. I mean, part of it was finances, and part of it wasn't expected somehow.
Really?
It's so, don't interrupt your studies for this.
Wow.
Right, yeah.
Huh. So how did you land on CSULA for going to college?
Well, that's where my brother went.
Okay.
We went, even though we were middle class, it was still kind of expensive to go to a major school.
Sure.
And I had done a couple of years of college already in the Philippines, and some of my school credits were accepted, but there were some like primary things that I need to take. So I went the route that my brother did. We took the credits in a junior college, Pasadena City College, and then transferred to Cal State LA, which was Los Angeles State College at that time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And, you mentioned that your parents had kind of had this idea of, well, what do you want to do? So what were you pursuing in college?
Well, supposedly I started enrolling in, English and general education, but, with a sort of emphasis on English. But then I started taking drama classes and so forth, and then eventually said, okay, this is my major, drama, okay?
And how did you get, hooked up with the drama department? Were you going to performances? I mean, did you just see,
Yeah, both. I went to performances and auditioned for roles. Yeah.
Do you remember the first play you did in college?
Oh, yeah. I remember it was The Taming of the Shrew. And I had one line. I was one of Petruccio's servants. Mm-hmm. And I had one line. He kills her with his own humor, or he kills her with her own humor. It's like, I still don't know quite what that means. Yeah. Anyway, that was my line.
And so, at what point in college did you feel like, I imagine maybe a little bit with one line, you can still feel like, part of the experience, part of the collaboration. But at what point did you feel like, okay, now I know I definitely want to pursue this as my major?
Yeah, I think was when I was auditioning for the college production, and out of curiosity, the director said, here, read a speech by somebody else or something, a longish speech. And I did, and I finished it. I had no idea what I read, and he said, you're good. And I went, really? I guess, I'd never gotten that kind of validation before, or nobody had said, oh, you're a good actor or whatever. Still, yeah. So that was a big plus, I think, where I go, maybe I can do this or something. So I auditioned for more college plays and did the same at Cal State. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so you finished college, you graduated with a major in drama, and then okay, what's the big plan, Alberto? What.
Well, it's pretty. I've been pretty passive about my career. I eventually, for years, people would say, "Do you have an agent? Are you going to get one?" And I always said no. And eventually, I called somebody, an agent, and he said, "Sure, why don't you come down?" And I went, and then about a few days later, he sent me an interview for a short film that was to be filmed in Nashville. And I booked the part. And I went, God, I should have done this sooner. It's so simple. Anyway, and of course, I didn't book another job for over a year. Anyway.
And so is this like the what would it be, the mid 60s are we in, or late 60s?
Mid 60s, yeah.
And so when did you get hooked up with East West Players? How did that come into the scene?
Yeah, shortly after that first job that I booked at the callbacks, the part was a Korean exchange student standing there. And at the callback, there was this Korean actor, Korean American named Soon Tae-go, and me. We were up for the same role. And I booked it. God, over a real Korean. So, but, we chatted in the waiting room, and he said, we've just formed this new theater company, and here's my phone number, and, you should check it out.
Okay, so all right, so you found out about it just at a general audition for another play. Is that what you were saying, or for
no? This was for the film that I.
Oh, the one in Nashville that you got.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, and so you flew out to Nashville to do that.
Yeah,
I imagine. And so, what was that was the first on-camera job you had at that time?
Yes, it was the first. Yeah.
And so what was your, were you just a bundle of nerves because this was a different medium, or, was it very collaborative? I mean, was it a short film or
it was a short film. Okay. Yeah, maybe half an hour or something. I don't remember being particularly nervous. I think because there was another Asian actor, younger than me, who kept flubbing his lines. So I felt so much more, I'm fine compared to, no. So, no, I don't remember particularly being nervous. There was rehearsals. I worked one of the actors in it. I remember had been the juvenile in Anna Nazimova's company.
Oh, okay. All right. Which company was that? I don't think I'm familiar.
Oh, Nazimova was Russian actress from the teens and 20s. She came to Hollywood, was a big star.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, you're too young, Nathan. I'm talking about, a big star of the 20s. Yeah. And she was she worked with Stanislavski and.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
I got to brush up on my theater history, Alberto. I'm sorry.
Anyways,
mea culpa.
So I felt like this, not at the time, but I think after the fact, I went, "Oh, I've got this, 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon." Or
yeah,
something.
Sure.
Like I felt like, I worked with him, and he worked with Nazimova, who worked with Stanislavski, who worked with Chekhov.
Oh, okay, cool.
So, it's like I was once talking to somebody, and I said, I wonder if a lot of actors can do that, 7 degrees and trace their way back to Shakespeare.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Anyway, but I found the experience, that particular part of the experience, more fascinating after the fact. As to the technical stuff, learn to slow down gestures when you've got a close-up or something. Yeah.
I mean, it's probably helpful that it was a short film and it wasn't like a major TV show, a huge, Hollywood film.
Right.
There's just a machine going, and you got to do your thing, and you got to, hit the ground running. That there was probably a little, I mean, even though there was probably some structure around it and certainly money going into it, there was probably a little bit less of a pressure on that project.
Probably, definitely. I remember, they had some film problems, and I had to go back for reshoots, 3 weeks later, which I thought, this is what the movie business is like, or something. Yep.
And okay, so you come back to LA, you connect with that actor at the audition for the Nashville project.
Yeah.
And then so how do you just call over to East West Players? Are they holding general auditions?
I can't remember whether he called me or I called him, but he had written a play that East West Players was producing.
Okay.
And
you said the company had just formed, they were just starting
about a year before.
Okay.
Yeah. About a year before they had done this very well received production of Rejection, which it was a big success, and they were going to move to a larger theater, and then the Watts riots happened, and they had to close.
Wow.
Anyway, and he said, we're having auditions. Mako is directing, and so I went and read with a couple of people. They were also first timers, and I got the part. I was playing the playwright's younger brother, playing another Korean, and so. Yeah, that was my first production with East West.
Did you know Mako just from East West Players, or did he have a reputation around town?
He had a bit of he had a reputation. I believe he had just gotten nominated for the supporting actor Oscar at that time, so I knew who he was.
Was it intimidating, even auditioning for him?
Gosh, I mean...
Or just being around him in general?
The ignorance of youth. It was like, I don't know, there's Mako. He's famous.
I've had some of those moments where it's later I'm like, how could I have been so casual around that person? Don't I know who they are?
Yeah. So no, I was fresh out of my first movie job. So I thought I was really hot,
did you feel like you just had growing confidence about yourself as an actor? Or, you said there was a period of a year where you didn't get another job. So how were you?
That was after the fact, yeah.
Yeah. How were you, just mentally, were you feeling really good about your work and your career and all that kind of stuff?
Well, after when we did the production of the play, I felt very good. I got some good personal reviews, and then nothing happened except, I was still in school.
Oh, okay.
I auditioned for
So all of this, all this stuff, even with East West Players, is happening while you're still in college, just getting your undergrad?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And how did it, was it something that occurred to you at the time in terms of as a Filipino coming over and now playing Korean or playing different ethnicity, I don't know if that would be the same as if you were doing theatrical productions in the Philippines, but suddenly you're just kind of lumped into this, large ethnic group of you can pass for all of these things. And did it bother you at the time? Did it make any difference? Was it just the thing to do?
No, not at that time. It still wouldn't, as long as it's an Asian role, I'll go if they think, if they think I'm acceptable in whatever ethnicity, although that's getting rarer and rarer.
Sure.
And I, my agent kept sending me on, Latino parts. So, so I do those. I mean, okay, I am, if you go with my DNA, there is a rather big chunk of it that's Iberian, so from my father's side. So if somebody, so
you feel okay doing that.
Joining East West, was a mind, it opened my mind, I think, not right away, but as I did more and more with them, I became more in touch with my Asian American identity. I don't want to sound pompous.
No.
But it never really, coming from a former Western colony, there's a lot of internal, I don't want to say hate or something, but a lot of, almost identification with the colonizer.
Of course. Yeah.
White is beautiful.
That
sort of thing. Yeah. So, and I think it always boggled when I first started taking classes at school, realized that nobody saw me except as an Asian person. It's like there was an exercise in an acting class where the professor said, "So write down what your fellow actor, how you would cast the other, your fellow actor." And it's like getting Sakini in the Tea House of the August Moon. And I'm like, well, I kind of I was thinking more, in Midsummer Night's Dream, Anyway, so that kind of thing. And eventually, as you work in the industry, you kind of start falling into that mindset anyway.
Did you, and I want to kind of stay in the period that we're in, but as a larger question, did you feel like theater became the place for you to explore, those different types of parts and those different types of characters and the roles that you saw yourself in? Did that start at East West Players or
No, well, it started in college where I would get cast sometimes in non-specifically Asian roles. I mean, we did a production of The Servant of Two Masters, and I got the lead. That was, which I always thought, oh, that's nice. And so like Trufaldino, and that was fine. I just took it for granted that, of course, I can play this.
Right.
And remember, we did funny thing happened in the West Forum, and I was in the second banana, Hysterium. And it was, in the college, and for me personally, it seemed like I got a wider range of roles I was cast in. We did a production of King Lear with this character actor named Frank Silvera, like name from the past, who was a guest artist. He was playing Lear, and I was playing the Fool. And
cool.
That was it was in a way almost like a master class. When I wasn't on stage, I would just hang out on the wings and watch him. I'd go, how did you do that? Why did you do that? We had actually a one-on-one session, even though he wasn't directing, where we just went through the rule, and he gave me some, and so now you're talking to me, Lear, why don't you talk to me like, you have a son, right? I said, yeah. How old is he? And I said, well, he's a baby right now. He's 2 years old. And he said, so talk to me like you're talking to your son. I went, okay. Yeah, you're trying to teach me something. I'm stupid. I don't, I've been bad. Yeah. So anyway, which was mind-opening. And yeah.
And I talked to Clyde Kusatsu, and he said he was involved in the early days of East West Players as well.
Yeah.
So
after I joined Duke.
Okay, so did you and Clyde work together? You guys were there at the same time, or
at the same time? Well, I mean, he joined several years after I did.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's a newbie compared to me. I joined a year after the company was formed. We did the only Chekhov I ever did, as a matter of fact. That we did Three Sisters, and I played the Baron, and he played Masha's husband, whose name escapes me right now.
Yeah, I can't think of it either. But
yeah,
I noticed. Yeah, East West Players. It seemed like you did a lot of classical roles, but I know they also developed new works too.
Yeah,
and so did you feel like you gravitated towards more one or the other? I mean, did it matter to you what you were doing, or you just wanted to work?
Yeah, I wanted to work, and then around the early 70s, I had booked this job in a touring production of a musical, and it was rehearsing in New York, and I went, oh my God, this is my big break or something. So I went to New York, and then got a really bad case of the flu, and missed all these rehearsals. And then they said, well, I kind of have to let you go. The only time I've been fired from a job. So that was a low point in my life, acting wise anyway.
Sure.
So I came back with my tail between my legs, and I didn't want to act. It was scary to act.
Oh, really?
So I started directing more and writing a little, and
yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I know, I mean, well, and it's interesting because it's like, being sick is nobody's fault and all that kind of stuff. But you're right. Like you feel bad, you feel ashamed, and it's just like, hey, we get sick. It's I think it's easier to kind of look back and go, hey, what was the big deal? I was sick. Like everybody gets sick, no big deal. But at the time, it's a little harder to process. You feel like, oh, I really screwed this up.
Right. And also part of me goes, because after I felt a little better, I did go to a couple of rehearsals, kind of coughing and then after I was let go, I went, it's just because I was sick, because I was bad.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there was always that thought behind, you were not good enough.
And you mentioned you had a child at this point. So, and because was this your current wife you met at East West Players, or?
No, this was my first wife.
Okay.
We had gotten married. I was 21. Too young, much too young. And we had a child, my only son. And so, yeah.
And so you were kind of bouncing around, getting jobs. Did you need to get another job in addition?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing. I always felt like, God, the energy of youth. I was in school and I had a part-time job.
Yeah.
Well, which was, I actually worked quite a few hours. It wound up like a full-time job. And I was doing as much as I could theater-wise, either at school or at East West or whatever little job I could book in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the directing at East West Players, and I saw you had kind of co-directed stuff with Mako, or you were on a direction team with him. How did those conversations begin? Did you ask him? Was he looking for assistance? I
think it may have started when we double cast a production.
Okay.
And I wound up directing one cast more. Okay. I mean, it wasn't a strict separation
right,
of
course,
cast.
Yeah.
But when he asked me to help out and he said, and we'll be co-directors. I said, oh, okay. So, and we did that we seemed to work really well together. I would sometimes point out things that, that hadn't entered his mind or something.
Sure.
So it was a good collaboration, and I did direct some things on my own,
And did you feel like that either kind of awoke a part of you that you or skills that you didn't realize you had, or what was it that you really enjoyed about directing?
Well, I think it was seeing a production take shape and not being one of the actors, so that there was this viewpoint where I could see, and especially if I was directing solely, where I was going, I'm making this,
Okay.
with Marcus. So it was like, we're making this, and that sense of seeing a work of art come alive, without being part of the work of art.
Sure. But you knew you could still feel that you definitely wanted to still be an actor in other ways. You never thought about just focusing on directing entirely.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't audition, or when I went to audition, I was going to talk so bad. I think I was self-sabotaging myself. But I can't remember that first. It may have been the Chekhov that I've, kind of put my foot back in the water, dipped my toes back in the water.
Well, I guess as a mentor to some degree, and working with Mako, he's somebody that is directing and acting and doing both. So, you certainly see it's possible.
Not myself. I've never been in.
Oh, no, but I'm sorry. But he just had dual careers. He was directing and acting and doing it successfully. Were there specific things you felt like you learned either from him or others at that period that you still use and that you still take away from in terms of, I guess, either as an actor or director?
I think the sense of letting actors as much as possible find their own way, at least in the early stage of rehearsals. Even though I never am. I don't think Marco ever was really, totally hands off.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sense of letting the actors discover things with a little prodding sometimes. But I kind of like to see what actors come up with.
Sure.
And see what I can use and so forth. Yeah.
And I know we're in like kind of the maybe late 60s, early 70s, but I got to ask, where did the Debbie Reynolds show come in?
Woof.
Or how did that come about? Was that just a straight audition?
Yeah, that was a straight audition. Yeah.
And what were you doing on the show?
God, I was playing a grocery worker. It must have been the late 60s, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm an audition. It was my first sitcom with multi-cameras and the audience and the live audience. And it was interesting. I was very happy because I had a nice little scene at the end where that was a big payoff to something. And so I told family and I told friends, be sure to watch whatever. And of course, they cut my big scene. Didn't know it until the air. Yeah. So I've never went to somebody. I've never done that again. I've never gone. Okay. Oh, you should watch because I have a role in it or something. Yeah.
And do you remember the filming of it? I mean, like, did you work with Debbie or were you working with other people?
We, as I said, we only had 2 scenes. Okay. And Tom Begley was one of the regulars of the film. The show got canceled about 2 episodes after after they showed mine.
But I mean, she was certainly a big star by that point.
Oh, yeah.
So was it intimidating, exciting? Did it even...
It was exciting, not intimidating. She was very friendly, made you feel, at home. She wasn't, aloof for anything. Right. Yeah. And I think what thrilled me even more was being on the lot at MGM. It's like, oh my God.
Right.
Yes. Anyway. Yeah.
This is where all those actors you had been seeing in films were. Right, exactly. And then it looked like maybe the following year or something, you were on the Bill Cosby show, and you had a bit of a recurring part on that, right?
Right. This was not the big success he had in the
not the Cosby show,
but an early show of his. I think it lasted. Kept canceled several episodes after mine. The curse of it.
I think there are other actors that can claim a little bit more, direct cursing. But anyway, so
yeah, this was one of his earlier sitcoms after I Spy. Right, yeah. And he played a school baseball coach or football coach or something. Yeah, and I was the water boy, so I did a couple of episodes.
And did you getting that and coming back a couple episodes, were you starting to feel like I've made it, or my career's going in the right direction, or things are happening?
No, it was, I was juggling work and school. Mm-hmm. So I was under a lot of stress, and work was starting to go, you're taking a long time off,
Okay, so you mentioned school. So wait, how, did you stretch out your undergrad, or were you going back for graduate?
No, I started working on my master's.
Oh, okay.
Then a lot of use that came. It was afterwards. So I just kept going to school. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So where did you end up pursuing your master's and what in?
Same. Cal State.
Okay. And did you get a master's in
drama?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay. All right, cool. So, and what did you see doing with that degree? Or did you just like being in school? Yeah. I mean, I know there are people that just enjoy the academic environment.
Yeah, a small part of it was. And the thought was always, well, the reason I went into the master's program was saying, I'm not really booking all this many jobs. I'm not going to make a living at this. Yeah. So a part of me was going, I guess I'm going to have to teach,
And were you still married at that point? Just still juggling?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so, and married, yeah.
And the kid, and a lot.
Yeah. Don't know how I did it.
Well, you were only what, 30 at the time or something like that? So
thereabouts, yeah.
Yeah, there's plenty of energy for 30. But now, around that period, I saw your play Coda was produced. So where did that come from? Where did that story come from?
That was, I think, a release from the fear of acting. This one, directing. I'm going to write something. There was a little competition that East West sponsored. So I said, here, I'll submit it. Anyway, and then they wound up producing it as part of a bill of 2 one-acts, and we got some really good reviews. And I thought, well, maybe I should write. Yeah. But then as I started acting again, the writing suddenly faded away. Not suddenly, gradually faded away. Yeah.
Did you act in Coda as well?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I did not, yeah.
Okay. So you didn't direct it. You just had written the piece.
Yeah.
But it's a story of somebody kind of coming to terms with their heritage, right? Is that?
Yeah. Heritage / sexuality.
Oh, okay.
It was throwing in everything in there, the kitchen sink.
Did you feel like in any way, was it an amalgamation of people you knew? Was there parts of your story in there as well? I mean, where did that inspiration come from?
Gosh, like writers said that everybody in my place is me or something.
Yeah.
I never felt like, I'm trying to tell my story or anything.
Right.
It's just like, these characters just seem to take a life of their own. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and you did meet your current wife at East West Players.
Yes, you did.
Was she Emily, right? And so, was she an early member as well, or did she come in later?
No, she was, she joined around 79 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
79, 80. Yeah. And I was very taken with her before I realized I was very taken with her. I remember seeing they were doing a production of The Frogs there. And this chorus member played one of the bacchantes or one of the frogs. And who is that stunning, young woman? Yeah. Anyway, but
and so in the through the 70s, you're working on your master's and you're starting to book more TV work. Is that?
It's always been there. It's always been up and down, up and down. Yeah. There's never been really. There's a few good years where you make enough to get your insurance, but
right,
I've never really worked consistently in the film and television industry. Yeah.
So how are you kind of keeping yourself in a good place, like during, in the through the 70s and the 80s and even maybe in some of the 90s, when it is so up and down, like what were you focused on? Was it I want to do as good a work as I can in theater or?
Yeah.
Did you start teaching at all or?
I taught a little bit at East West in their summer programs, and then realized I don't really enjoy this. It's I didn't really, and I'm not a patient person, and maybe not as insightful a person as some other drama acting teachers I worked with. I'm okay, but not. It's like I want to be good if I'm going to do something.
Yeah.
So, and I was booking some regional theater occasionally, but yeah, I've never really had an acting career the way my wife has, where, she can, if she wasn't married to me, she could live comfortably as an actor,
Okay.
My wife is more famous than I am in theater circles.
And do you see that? I mean, I know part of it is sometimes just the casting at the right time or the right project and those kind of elements can line up. But did you see either her or other actors you knew in terms of how they were marketing themselves or what they were doing to kind of stay on the radar of theaters, and were you trying to incorporate that into your own, day-to-day work?
No, as I said, I've been very passive about my career. It feels like when I book something, it's because I auditioned and they like me, and I a couple of times I remember seeing a casting notice for something and I went, I can do that, and getting my agent to send me and then realizing, I'm not doing very well. It's, this audition sucks or something. Right. So I stopped nagging him about sending me out for something, Yeah. just because I don't want that feeling of sorry I made you send me out, and I was very good. Yeah.
Right. And so when did you and your current wife, when did that relationship begin? Was that in the 80s?
That would be in the 80s. We had our first date in 1980. So got married a couple of couple of years.
It went really
after
well.
That.
Yeah.
A couple of years after that. So
okay, cool.
We've been married for over 40 years.
Yeah.
More than 40 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what was it like, what is it like, I guess I would ask, being with another actor and of course, your careers are going differently at different times, in terms of supporting one another, helping each other with auditions and all that kind of stuff. I mean, did you feel like has it been helpful to have another actor as your partner who understands the inner workings of what the life is?
I think so. I mean, I can't speak for my wife, but I certainly can understand it. I mean, especially because, as I said, she works a lot more than I do. Before the pandemic, she was out of town, in New York and Boston or something, more than she was at home. So that was a really good year busy year for her, 2019. So yeah, I understand. And
do you, that quality of like when one partner is working more than the other, at least for yourself, how do you navigate that without getting too much in your head about, she's doing all these things and I can't scrape together two nickels kind of thing?
Well, I'm sure there's that, fleeting thought where it goes, God dang it, I wish I could work more as much as she does.
Right.
But it's not like, or anything, I'm not being Eve Harrington and all about him.
Yeah.
And it helps that that we're not two guys or something married to each other going out for the same roles.
Yes. Yeah, that would probably be a very different dinner conversation.
Yeah.
It's like Citizen Kane, where the two of you are at just like very long, the end of a very long table.
Further and further.
Yeah, just staring at each other.
And rehearsing on the sly.
Yes, no kidding. And so, jumping ahead a little bit, I saw, in the year 2000, you worked on Family Law and you did a number of, episodes on that.
Yeah.
Did that feel like a turning point in your career at all?
Not
or was
really.
It just kind of work?
It was a job, that.
And then did they just keep asking you back?
Yeah, so I did 9 episodes or something.
Yep.
They just kept asking me. I auditioned for the pilot or something, didn't get it, but they called me back for something else and booked that, and they liked it better, So it was fun. It was a small, very showy role, surly, grumpy judge, Walter Knapp. Which I kept going, that's a familiar name. Why is he's called Walter Knapp? They realized that was Fred McMurray in Double Indemnity's name.
Oh, right.
I think the screenwriter was just,
reaching for names anywhere he could.
So I'd have, and it was easy because you're a judge and you could cheat by looking down at your desk because you're always busy and writing things, and you're going, there's my line. Right. So
tricks of the trade.
Right. So it was nice. And the director actually remembered me from it and cast me in something else as a judge, So.
And right around that time, maybe a little bit earlier, you had done that show Dog Eaters was it La Jolla Playhouse the first time?
Yeah, we did the world premiere of Dog Eaters with Michael Greif directing. An enormous cast.
A young Sandra Oh was in the cast, right?
Oh yeah, yes, she was. And even with that enormous cast, there was still a lot of doubling of roles because the play is such a panoramic depiction of the era. So I played, in that production, I played the good, virtuous senator who, high class and stuff. And I played a low life, dope dealer, pimp. So that was fun. I got to be assassinated about 3 times because they kept flashing on the assassination of the senator. And then the pimp also got stabbed to death. recently with blood spurting. That was fun. Anyway, and at one point I was an extra in a gay bar scene and wearing a leather with my back to the audience. Yeah.
And I know the show went on to New York. Did you? And it looked like some of the people went, but did you have the option to go to New York? Were you interested?
No. I don't think they could afford to house all the LA people. Right. And they had a fairly big Filipino movie star who who took on the role, and there it goes. Then when they did the production at the Kirk Douglas, which was a remounting of a small theater production here, directed by John Lawrence Rivera, the playwright specifically asked if they could ask me to do the role that had been played by another actor.
Wow.
So I went, okay. And I said, who else is doing it from the original production? And they said, Alec Mapa is going to do it because she also asked for him to do it.
Oh.
But then he got a sitcom or some major, and so I had to drop out. So I was the only person from the original production, the La Jolla production. And I felt, God, this feels like a dead end in a way, It's like I had done some remountings of a play before where I play this, either as a director or as an actor, but it felt different for some reason. I don't know why. I could get on the psychoanalyst's couch and tell you why, but anyway.
And I also saw there was a project very aptly titled Mr. Isaac that I noticed. Carrie Higuchi, I was in class with her at Antilles for a little bit. What was that? What was Mr. Isaac?
It's a short film that Carrie wrote for me, I think. And so about a director, a theater director, who suddenly starts laughing and can't stop. And that's,
that seems like something you could do.
Yeah, it was fun. When we started rehearsals, I said, Isaac is Hebrew for laughter.
Really?
Because,
did she know that?
No. Abraham and Sarah named the baby Isaac because she laughed when she heard the angel say, and your wife will give birth or something, because she was ancient or something by that time. Anyway, Yitzhak is laughter or something.
I was curious, thinking about a lot of the directing projects that you had done, and you talked about remounting. How do you choose what to direct, in terms of, plays? I mean, I remember reading, you directed Art in like 2009, and it was a very kind of specific idea in terms of the casting that you guys, approached. But just when you're kind of thinking about, well, what am I going to work on next? What do you look for?
I think mainly I get asked to direct.
And that passivity again,
either I go, okay, or
you must evaluate it by some criteria when they ask you. It's not just like, sure, I'll do anything.
Right. If it's a play that's got a history, it depends on. Yeah, I've turned down things actually. I was asked to direct Crimes of the Heart.
Oh, sure.
And first I said yes, and then I was reading it, and I went, all the actors I want to cast are now too old for this. And then the thought of auditioning a whole bunch of people whose work I don't know. Was just, it felt really, it made my mind tired, my head just started out. So I called immediately and said, on second thought, no, I said, and people said, why? You'd be working with new people, and going, no, why directors work with people over and over again? Because they know their work. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They can depend on them. They like them. They like the work they do. Yeah. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And do you look for acting opportunities the same way? I mean, in terms of what you're going to audition for, I mean, maybe that's largely theater, but I'm sure even now there are auditions that come up for TV or film that you're just like, nah, I'm not going to do that.
They're rare where I go, this is totally wrong for me, you know, and my agent will sometimes go, you know, yeah, okay. Right.
But are there things that you are still looking for as an actor, or just ways that you evaluate, you know, whether it's a theater role or other kind of role that you want to take on?
Well, there's, you know, people always talk about their dream roles and stuff.
Sure.
I remember some years ago, more than 5 years ago, a young actor said, "You should do King Lear." I said, "Really? I don't know." So we arranged an informal reading at the house, and I read King Lear. And as I was reading it, I'm going, this is wrong. This is wrong. I could play Gloucester, maybe.
Yeah.
But I did do something during the storm scene, you know, just out of sheer big-headedness, where I started to whisper the, you know, blow, winds blow. And I thought, this is a way to go. You know, if I ever directed this play, I'll have Lear just alone whispering those lines in total silence, you know.
Was there you mentioned that moment with Lear, but was there a theater role that you've done, or I guess it could be a TV or film role, that you were just really happy with your work in that show? And even more so than looking back, like at the time, you were just like, yeah, I did as much as I could. I feel like I really cracked this one. There are probably many, so maybe just if one jumps to mind.
That's very, very rare to me, where in the performance where I feel like, you know how in theater, when that moment when you as an actor feel like you and the audience, it's almost like you are so close, you are together, you are almost one. It's almost like making love. You know, you're one organism. And that's happened maybe twice in my life, where I felt like I can do anything now and they'll go with me. You know? But acting is always, I don't want to say I'd always say it's work, but it is work. It's, I always feel like I need to be on my toes. I need to be alert. I need to have my, mind open. I need to be aware of so many things. It's not like, oh yeah, we're having fun here. I mean, right. Obviously it's something that's enjoyable, even though it's hard to do. But yeah, but that transcendental feeling of, yes, I'm doing well here. This is really working. Has been so rare. After the fact, I felt, hey, there is some stuff there, some good stuff. And, ooh, you made a wrong choice on that role. And on something, you decided to do that. And it was too late to let it go. It's like in the last week of some production, I went, I should never have done what I was doing for the character. This is totally wrong in this production. Anyway.
And so is that the kind of role that, or are there others that you feel like you didn't crack and you would like to revisit, or do you not think about those things?
When the pandemic struck, I had just opened a play at Open Fist Theater. And it was a short play by Carol Churchill called Here We Go.
Okay.
And it's very short. And it's in 3 parts. The first part is what looks like a wake. So there's fragments of conversation, sometimes about the deceased, but often not about, And then the second part is the deceased maybe, or somebody totally different after death. And he's having all this, it's going through all these visions. I mean, it's like it goes through a Christian idea of the afterlife, an Egyptian idea, whatever, Greek. And then the third part is you see him in a hospice type, just, getting changed and going to bed, getting changed, going to bed, over and over again. So I did the second and third part, but I felt like I had just gotten the feel of it, and then we had closed because of the pandemic. Yeah. And I really, really would like to take another crack at that, because I always felt like I got hung up on a stage direction the playwright had. And, even though the director said, let it go, no, I kept reverting to it. The stage direction is spoken as fast as possible. It's like, yes. And you're familiar with Carol Churchill's?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. And in this particular play, the second part was a 6-page monologue.
Oh, wow.
For me. And Carol Churchill did not put any punctuation in it. So it's a lot of the preparation was, when is this the new thought? When is this yeah. But that I found intellectually challenging, and it probably was the most difficult role I'd ever undertaken, and I was like starting to get it. I got some good reactions from some people, some not so good, but I thought I can do this if I just started to relax into it. There you go.
Yeah, well, and are there any other roles, from over your career, early days from East West Players or beyond, taking aside, like, if you would be age appropriate to play the part now, are there any characters that you're just like, oh man, I wish I had another crack at that one, or I feel like I'd understand it so much better now?
Right. Actually, I did a production of Twelfth Night in the 70s, I guess, and I played Festi, and I had a disagreement with the director. I followed what she wanted, which the clown, and I wanted him to be a lot more melancholy.
Yeah.
And so, but now I thought I can play that role now. It would, really well, I think.
Do you mean in the clownish direction or the more melancholy direction?
No, in whatever. I want to find something else now, because at my age, it feels like, now what would it mean? What would he be doing?
And yeah, I think we did, we did actually a number of scenes from that in the rehearsal room workshops. And I remember part of the conversation was like how dark of a character Festi is.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's not the typical clown, he's not just like, the voice of reason or whatever, like the fool or whatever. I mean, it's just like, man, there is a real darkness to this guy. And how do you explore that? How do you kind of justify the character through the play?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, that's, it's like I was rereading. I never reread plays that I've been, but I was rereading it several months ago, and I went, oh, I don't think I even scratched the surface at, I was 32 or something when I did it. Yeah.
Well, you've worked with Armin Shimmerman, right?
Yes.
I remember Armin, I can't remember if we said on the podcast or not, but his line is that you need to play every Shakespeare part 3 times, to really get it, it's like, and having only, I don't think I've ever had the opportunity to play a part twice, but yeah, the first time was like, you're just trying to, remember everything and do everything and hope you're getting close, but it's like not until you're able to relax into it a number of times and probably over a number of years that things drop in.
That makes total sense. Yeah, that's why I would like to revisit some roles. East West did this interesting adaptation of Twelfth Night years later, which it was written in Pidgin, Hawaiian Pidgin.
Oh, okay.
And I played Malvolio this time, although he was called Malolio or something. And I wonder if I could take a whack at the Shakespeare one. Of course, I'm too old, but still, yeah.
Well, you just need a director with a vision of why Malvolio is, over 70 or whatever. Olivia is crying about her brother, but he died from natural causes at 95 or something, and everybody's older. I do have to ask because I really enjoyed the show. Your experience working on My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Did you it looks like, at least from the timing, did you audition for that before he was even on the air?
Oh yeah.
So okay, so it was just another job. Like, did you have any idea of what it was going into it with all the musical stuff, or
not really? I didn't get the script. There was just sides,
okay.
Of course, and and the casting director was somebody who had cast me in something else. So she pushed me, I think, and yeah. Then when I started working at it and reading the script, this is crazy. I love this. It's so much fun. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it's always fun to play a Filipino. You know, how often you get to do that, you know? So
coming full circle. Yeah.
Yeah. It was nice. I enjoyed doing it, and the roles were small enough so that I didn't have to worry about learning lines so much, because a couple of years before I had my first I'm blanking out in the middle of this take moment, and it scared the hell out of me. Yeah. Anyway, so it was comforting to go, I can learn this, 3 or 4 lines.
Right, because the dad was a very terse character. Yeah. And did the experience kind of evolve, as you kept going back, as the show was getting more popular and they were just doing different things? And I mean, I know in little bits you were involved in some of the musical numbers too. Did you end up singing on the show at all?
No.
Oh, okay.
Thank God. No.
That was in your contract. No singing for Alberto.
For the last episode I worked on, I had to fake play the piano, which somehow my childhood piano lessons paid off.
Okay. Oh, cool. Well, great. And I was wondering, now, and certainly over the pandemic, everybody's day-to-day life has changed, but in general, as things are starting up, or if you're, thinking back to pre-pandemic, when you're not working, how do you spend your day in terms of, staying active, keeping busy, all that kind of stuff?
Well, we have 2 cats.
Yep. Okay.
They're a handful. They're both senior cats. That's one. I took a break from Facebook because I realized I was spending too much time on it.
Sure.
And so, that's one thing I'm not doing. I'm watching movies and TV and shows, and I seem to have, if I've got something recorded or if something is streaming, my attention span seems to be a lot shorter. So there's a lot of shifting. What else is on?
Oh, yeah.
So I think, in my mind, some Netflix series have gotten their plot lines all merged.
There are crossover episodes happening in your head rather than on the screen. What is what is this character from Downton Abbey doing in this Marvel movie? I'm now confused.
Right.
You mentioned that you didn't sing on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, but I did see that you worked on this show Emoji Land live in concert, which to me suggests that there is music in there. And I don't know, were you singing in that, Alberto?
Yeah, I had a short little number which I kept screwing up. They were so patient with me. It was a patter song, of course. Yeah, and I used to do, for fun, Gilbert and Sullivan. So patter songs are not, but for some reason this was very difficult for me because probably of my advanced age or something.
Well,
anyway,
you said that a couple times. It's not like you're 130, Alberto. Like, come on,
it feels like it sometimes.
We're just kind of wrapping up here. I was curious, looking back, do you feel like as a younger actor and you were doing directing, you did a little writing, do you feel like there are things you wish you had focused more on as a young artist?
I think, it almost feels like it was impossible to do that. But I always felt like I should have focused on acting, writing, directing, and nothing else. It should have been, I should have been a more focused artist to use it, but it always felt like real life kept.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And maybe laziness as well. Inertia.
Have you had to kind of combat that inertia, laziness issue? Like, have you found ways to overcome that? Like to be more proactive as you? Oh, no.
In a short, to put it shortly, no. Okay. I think even more in, as my life winds down, it feels like, whatever,
Sure.
Let me, it's like, I used to know this sonnet by heart, and now all I can remember are the first 3 lines. It's like, what happened?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. It's not as sharp as it used to be.
Right. Yeah. And conversely, is there anything looking back that you wished you had worried less about, that at the time seemed like such a big deal and was, whether it was rejection or anything else going on that you can see with a bigger perspective now?
Yeah. It's interesting you use the word rejection, which I think is the major factor that gets in the way of artists, of actors, people working in the arts. To get that sense of, too bad, you don't want me, but I know I'm good. That's very difficult, especially for actors, I think, because actors have to be so open. Yeah. You can't work with a shield, an emotional shield. You could, I suppose, and wind up with a kind of cold technical performance. But the actors I admire and I aspire to be, always feel to be like so vulnerable, even though they're playing tough guys or, tough. There's always this sense of they're not hiding anything from you. There's, and that's a quality that my wife has, where I feel like she always has that. She's not protecting anything. Right. Anyway, yes, I wish I could have worked on that some more.
Yeah. And do you feel like you eventually got to a place that you, like, was there a particular project that you feel like put you over that, or was it just over time realizing that it's not personal? And being willing. I mean, I guess it always takes the right kind of people around to feel like I can be vulnerable in this collaboration.
I think after the New York experience, I was taking an acting class because I wanted to. And there was a moment where I was doing a scene and suddenly I felt really, open, and I started to cry. I had never been able to cry on stage before. And it was like, I don't know what happened. Maybe yet some years had passed. So I was gratified that when I did a production of a play that I had done before in another regional theater, that I felt like, I learned some things. And I felt like that second production, I was much more full. The character was fuller, more moving, and I felt like I was tough and tender at that time. Yeah.
Great. Well, Alberto, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you sharing so much about your life. It was fascinating to learn about, you growing up in the Philippines and the whole crazy circuitous journey. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Catherine Grayson.
Wherever you may be. Yeah.
And met her once. I actually met her once. I had a day job working in a law office, and I was doing some typing, and she had come to see another attorney, and her throat had been, she was suing somebody for damage to her singing voice or something. But I was just typing away. And I started to hum the song she had been, and I went, stop it. Anyway.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for chatting today. I really appreciate it, Alberto.
No, thank you. My pleasure, Nathan.
Hey there, this is Nathan one more time. Thanks so much for checking out the episode today. Please remember to subscribe so you don't miss anything ahead. If you enjoy what you've heard, please let others know. Write a review, post on social media, send an email, tell your entire acting class, or just a friend. I sincerely appreciate it. You can tag us at WAJ Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. I'd love to hear what you think of the show. Be sure to check out workingactorsjourney.com for our show notes with additional info and links mentioned in this episode, as well as all the episodes. We've got 25-plus interviews and 12-plus workshop presentations. Sign up for the email list so you're the first to hear about upcoming projects, workshops, and much, much more. Thanks again to today's guest and to everyone that makes these episodes possible. And a special thanks to you for listening. I'm Nathan Egan, and enjoy the journey.